There are a lot of great things about the tokusatsu genre. There's amazing action, great aesthetics, developed characters, interesting plots, and bad CG are all features that are seen in nearly every Toku franchise, and each lets every season have some enjoyable and different elements from each other no matter what. This, combined with the series rotation every year or two, allows for what I think is one of the coolest parts of tokusatsu, which is its open-endedness and massive potential for new ideas and expansion. It's very easy to come up with a new Zord for the Q-Rangers or a new form for Kamen Rider Kuga that fits within their aesthetics and could just be a fun thing to do. If you're really feeling creative, you could even create your own season with its own motifs, characters, stories, and it could fit very nicely with the franchise it's based off of and alongside the others. Today, to celebrate 3,000 subscribers, I asked you guys to share your proudest and best tokusatsu ideas with me for one big Tokusatsu fan ideas video. Now, there are a lot of ideas in this video, so no more wasting time, let's get to it. We're going to start off with Jacen's idea for a Sentai season called Jigen Sentai ryusoulger, or Dimensional Squadron Brave Ranger. The story begins when the fabric between dimensions is threatened by the Cybotalians, a group of cyborgs led by Conqueror Yureku, which prompts Commander Ichini of Jigen Command to recruit a team of heroes across different dimensions to protect them. Our team is made up of Yusha Red, an Eagle Beastman named Yuko, Yusha Blue, a racer named Jaku, Yusha Yellow, Yuki, a ninja in training, Yusha Black, a cyborg named Neto, and Yusha Pink is Amy, a magician. There will also end up being a sixth member of the team named Yusha Green, but there's not too much on him here now. This is pretty much it all. Jacen has said that he is not done with all the ideas here, but I like the simple use of Rangers being brought together, and I like they're all from different dimensions, which could allow for some really interesting storytelling and dynamics, so I'm looking forward to where this little series may go. Epic DVB has an idea for a Sentai team as well. This one takes some inspiration from Q-Ranger, as it focuses in on a team of 12 Rangers based on Chinese zodiacs fighting against an alien empire. However, where the story takes a turn is in the fact that the 12 Rangers start out as 3 separate teams with only 3 members. Over the course of the season, each team eventually acquires 1 extra member each, and then they all join forces as one team of 12. There's no name for this team yet, but I really like the idea of the team starting out in different squads and then eventually coming together at some point. It's a really cool idea. They also have a mecha system similar to Q-Ranger, where they can switch out different parts of the Megazord and replace it with their own Zord, a concept that I'm always happy to see, and I would really like to see more details on it and kind of hear what could make it different and unique. Vinz Seika's idea for a team of Super Sentai uses a chess theme for its main team, and they are all based on different pieces in the game. The Red Ranger is based on the King, the Blue Ranger is a Knight, the Green Ranger is a Rook, and the Yellow Ranger is a Bishop, with the Pink Ranger as the Queen. The character types themselves are pretty standard, with Yellow and Pink being best friends, Green being an athletic type, Blue being the smartest of the team, and Red being cocky and arrogant and the leader. However, the twist here is in that Red acts this way to protect his younger brother, both of which were actually chosen to have the powers of the Red Ranger, but the younger brother pushed his older sibling into it because he believed he would be more mature and more deserving of the Ranger and Leader title. However, becoming a Ranger would turn out to be bad for the older brother's big ego, as he became power-hungry and reckless, which resulted in his Ranger powers being taken from him and being given to the younger brother, which causes the older brother to disappear for a while in the storyline. When he returns, we see that he's joined the villains and has his Ranger powers once again, but now in a darker, evil form. And the villains are said to have a playing card motif, so I think seeing some playing card motifs in this villain suit would also be very cool. Later, the bond between the two brothers proves stronger than the darkness, and the older brother's powers become purified and results in a new white form for the character. I have to say, I really like the idea of the Red Ranger becoming evil for a small time, and then eventually coming back to the light stronger than before, and with new power. The idea here is he's the 6th Ranger, but I would personally prefer it as an extra Ranger because it kind of gives the opportunity to have this character's arc last over the entire course of the show, and we could have his redemption as the new White Ranger King. That could be the endgame plot of the entire show leading up to the finale. I think that would be really cool, but overall I have to say there are some great ideas here. Lindsay-Sir Graffis has created a Power Rangers adaptation of Denshi Sentai Denziman and Taiyo Sentai Sun Vulcan, 2 seasons that came out before Zyuranger, resulting in them being currently unadapted season. The season here begins 10 years ago when Madame Rosa discovers a table underground with 5 rectangles on it that have different colors on them and radiate power beneath the GSA headquarters where they were found. She did not pay much attention to this artifact until one day she awakens from a dream of the future where dark matter begins to attack the Earth as part of its conquest. To save her planet, Rosa begins to assemble her own team of Power Rangers, part of the GSA. The starting team of 5 includes Harvey Rivers, GSA Red, Arya/Ashton Kuzel, GSA Green, Cora Hong, GSA Pink, Tycho Franklin, GSA Orange, and Corinth Summers, GSA Yellow. Eventually, the team expands to include Agnes and Charlie Starner, who share the powers of GSA White, and the ASD Rangers. Bridge Carson, ASD Red, Eustace McAllister, ASD Blue, and Eliza Kuzel, ASD Yellow. Eventually, in the season finale, they team up with Henry Danger and the Thundermans, who become the Danger Rangers. But in the end, they all end up losing to dark matter and lose the Earth, resulting in both teams joining forces and creating a Q-Ranger adaptation as the Galaxy Squad Rangers. I really like the idea of combining 2 pre-Mighty Morphin Sentai into one team because they look very similar, and it's a way to use both seasons at the same time. And I also quite like the idea of having it lead into a Q-Ranger adaptation in a similar way to what was done with Power Rangers Turbo and Power Rangers in Space. Another interesting element is how diverse the characters here are. Ashton is supposed to be trans, Tycho and Corinth are gay, and Eustace, Eliza, and Bridge are autistic. I'm not sure how easy it would be for Viacom, the company making the season, to market the season like that, but it actually is a very interesting way to do so, and it could really help make the season stand out among the rest of the Power Rangers series. Special Form 12 has also created his own unique team of Sentai known as Shaman Sentai Mystic Jar. This story takes heavy inspiration from the shaman culture, people that were seen as spiritual figureheads across the world and were believed to exist as an in-between of life and death and function as messengers for both worlds. Our heroes of this story live on an island that focuses on this culture, and it's the source of their power. Their parents were trained as shamans and were part of a long line of mystic jars. However, long ago they sacrificed themselves to seal away an ancient evil. This evil was known as the Ancients, and it is a council made up of ancient gods that have played big parts in history throughout the world, such as Osiris, Icarus, and Olmec. They have now returned in the present day and are sending out minions known as relic creatures to take over the world for them. Thankfully, the children of the heroic mystic jars that sealed them long ago have awakened their own power to become a new team of Shaman Sentai. The team includes Alaric, Shaman of the Sun, Mystic Red, Conroe, Shaman of the Deep, Mystic Blue, Sanai, Shaman of the Land, Mystic Yellow, Tassis, Shaman of the Jungle, Mystic Green, and Kala, Shaman of the Winds, Mystic Pink. The 6th ranger in the team, Mystic Dusk, is a character who was originally a monster for the Ancients, but eventually came to the light and joined the Mystic Jars. He's also supposed to be a mirror to the Sun Falcon aspect of Mystic Red by having a Lunar Raven aspect, which is really cool. I have to say that I really like the shaman aspect here. It's not an idea that we've really seen in Sentai yet, and I love how well it's integrated into the story, especially with having the main cast being pretty proficient shaman at the time they become rangers. That's once again another idea that we don't see too often in Sentai. It makes this team feel new at the whole ranger gig, but not totally helpless. The whole mystic aspect of this could be really cool for storytelling and character plots. The ideas here are very well thought out, and I quite like them. To segue into the Kamen Rider ideas, which you guys have a lot of, we're going to take a look at Fadhi Gacha's Playz hybrid season as a bridge, because they say that they like to make fusions between Kamen Rider and Super Sentai during new seasons and give the rider new forms based on the Sentai mechas. The example given is Ex-Aid and Zyuohger, with the final form of the hybrid being Wild Tosai Dodeka King, the final mecha of Zyuohger. The formula here gets mixed up with Geo, where the Sentai ride watches are used to turn into past rangers as opposed to past riders. This is actually a really cool idea in my opinion. We never really get too many crossovers between the gear of Rider and Sentai, and I wish we could see something like it done more by Toei in movies and specials. It really only happens in the toy line, and we never get to see actual physical representations of it in other medias. I assume here that it would follow a pattern of the main superhero time crossovers, so some Kyuranger XA designs, in my opinion, would be awesome. Now, to really start off the Kamen Rider segment, we're going to take a look at ToxicGhoul's ideas for Kamen Rider Dino. The season begins millions of years ago during the time of dinosaurs, when a group of them managed to survive the massive extinction event. They moved underground and over time evolved into more humanized versions of themselves and renamed themselves the Ryujin tribe, or Dragon People tribe. They are content living in isolation from the rest of the world until a radical group of them, calling themselves the Majujin, rises up and takes charge of the entire species. They harvest the power of the earth known as mana into amber vials with the help of devices known as dino drivers. The amber vials can be used by the Majujin to turn other life forms into Neosaurs, monsters designed for war that are loyal only to their creators. The Majujin lead the species to the surface world to battle against the humans that have now taken charge of it, only to be defeated when the humans make use of the amber vials themselves and seal the Majujin underground. In modern day, they have broken free and once again seek to conquer the world for themselves. But now, Akira Suzuki, Kamen Rider Dino, stands in their way with the powers of the Amber Vials and Dino Driver given to him by a deserter of the Majujin. I really like this idea. As I've said in the past, I've always wanted a dinosaur season Kamen Rider, and I really like the way the lore works here. There's a lot of things you can do with the dinosaur tribe, and it's really cool that they actually created the rider powers, and it's being used against them throughout the season. It means it's very organic to have evil riders as opposed to some other seasons. So really cool stuff here. Chohenshin Hero has created an idea to adapt Kamen Rider Decade called Rider Potential, which is a bit of a familiar name for some reason. The idea for this adaptation would be to use Decade's anniversary aspect in Japan as a jumping off point for the other seasons in the adaptation before we see them in their own seasons. It would be along the lines of how Spider-Man and Black Panther were introduced originally in Captain America Civil War before they went on to star in their own separate movies. The Kamen Riders were heroes of the world and were beloved by the people, until Die Shocker wiped everyone's memories of these heroes and separated them into their own different isolated worlds. It's now up to Kamen Rider Decade to reconnect the worlds of the Kamen Riders so that they can defeat Die Shocker together. Sounds a bit like the original Decade season, but I think that by spending more time on introducing these riders rather than changing aspects and show how they are the actual characters instead of duplicates, the season can work. My favorite part of this idea is the toy potential though. Not only would a Deca driver be released in the toy line, but since this is the first season, the drivers of the other Kamen Riders would be released as well, with their respective ride cards to be used in the Deca driver. It basically makes this in a way that the gimmicks of the actual season are actual drivers, and it's a crazy idea that I think would be really cool, but maybe not cool on people's wallets. I like this rider potential idea. It sounds cool and I would enjoy seeing it done. Mr. Newmind 2018 has our first Kamen Rider crossover idea of the video. It's a crossover with the Danganronpa video game series and makes use of original characters turning into past Kamen Riders. We have Ryosuke Akamusto as Kamen Rider Decade, John Riley as Kamen Rider Snipe, Hiroki Hojo as Kamen Rider Xade, Ren Mizuki, Kamen Rider Dark Kabuto, Tadashi Machi, Kamen Rider Quiz, Connor Nazami, Kamen Rider Great Cross Z, Chihiro Izumi, Kamen Rider Sasword, Zero Kuruba, Kamen Rider Joker, Yono Heisei, Kamen Rider Shinobi, and special appearances from Wazen Sogo as Wazen Sogo. The story is more or less the Kamen Rider Geo series following Wazen Sogo crossed over with Danganronpa and the inclusion of the new character riders. I don't know really anything about Danganronpa, so I can't really comment on that aspect of this, but I do like the idea of bringing together all of these different riders and forcing them to team up and work together, kind of like the rider equivalent of Boom Studios' Power Rangers Beyond the Grid. Even though they're different characters from the original riders, I think it could still work to bring together all of these different motifs, designs, and characters. Denzel Lanzon has detailed a full-on mini-arc for how Kamen Rider Decade could have acquired his Neo Deca driver in Kamen Rider Geo, which is him traveling to the different Kamen Rider worlds of the Neo Heisei riders. Like with the original Decade series, each AR world takes some aspects from the season it's based on, but changes some things and adds in some fun twists. Tsukasa must help out the main rider return to pretty much the way we know them. In the world of Double, the two detectives are split apart, and Decade must bring them back together to become Double. In O's, the Greed control the Kogami Foundation, and they must be removed from it with the help of Eiji and Tsukasa. In Forze's world, Gentaro is an asshole and has to be taught about friendships and the value of others. In the world of Wizard, Haruto is pretty much down on his luck after being betrayed by Wiseman trying to remove a phantom inside of him, and he will be taught to move on from this. The world of Gaim has Kota being humbled by Tsukasa because of his many rivalries as Kamen Rider Gaim. Decade will fight alongside Drive in his AR world against a rebellious faction of roid mules that refuse to submit to the humans. Ghost is taught about the hardships of life, Xaid is told to move on and accept others, even bugsters, and Build works alongside Decade to defeat a reborn Evil in his world. I personally think that this whole idea sounds awesome. I would totally watch this if it was our third Rider Time special because it explains a minor plot hole in Geo and also kind of helps to fill in the world in Rider since it explains where the Neo Deca driver comes from in Kamen Rider Geo, an explanation that we don't get. I also quite like the little different quirks and changes in the different world. It's something that obviously hasn't been done with these new seasons but was done in the previous seasons before Decade, so overall I'd say this is a cool idea. On a similar note, Stelia Batsios, according to Google Translate, has created their own idea for an interdimensional rider, Kamen Rider Dimensions. This rider is born when Ben is given his own driver by a man who knows about the vast multiverse that is in danger of being taken over by the evil corporation known as Disney. Disney, please don't demonetize this video. I love the Marvel movies. Using the Dimensions driver, Ben is able to cross over throughout the different dimensions and acquire the powers of the Kamen Riders there in order to save them. He'll encounter Kamen Rider Blocks in the Roblox dimension, Kamen Rider Craft in the Minecraft dimension, Kamen Rider Wars, not Was, Kamen Rider Trek, and Kamen Rider AC. Each rider has different abilities unique to them that gets passed on to Kamen Rider dimensions for his own unique forms. I think that the one thing that we can really learn about this little crossover idea is that using the dimension crossing idea from Kamen Rider Decade is a really good way to merge different ideas and franchises into one single season. They aren't really connected in any way, at least not directly because they don't share crossovers with each other, but using the dimensions allows everything to stay connected in this season and allows everything to still make sense in a way. Brandon King's idea for a Kamen Rider season begins in Greece, specifically in Marinima City. A surgeon named Brandon King is there for a business trip, but when he arrives at the site of some ancient ruins, he is transported to the realm of the gods instead. When he's there, the god Thanatos chooses Brandon as his champion to fight off an ancient evil known as the Titans, ancient gods that were sealed away millions of years ago, but are now returning and seek vengeance on those that sealed them there. Brandon is given the wrist-mounted Death Driver, which allows him to become Kamen Rider Thanatos. He is later joined by Guy Yoshinaka, a local of Marinima City who becomes Kamen Rider Hades, and his own sister, Aratani King, who becomes Kamen Rider Artemis. The three riders work together using the Elim keys to unlock new powers based on Greek monsters and defeat the Kaijin led by the Titans. I really like the Greek ideas here. I love the use of the different concepts and think they are really integrated well. I also like the use of Thanatos as the main god, not just because I like the character he inspired, but also because we're using a different god here as the main god instead of some other well-known legend, such as Zeus or Poseidon. It kind of makes the rider team here feel more diverse, especially with Artemis as well, which again, Artemis isn't really used very prominently in a lot of different Greek-based works. So as such, I love the diversification here. Froz Z has created another rider potential idea, this time about Kamen Rider Ghost. The main character in this idea is named Dan, a young teenager whom we begin the story by seeing that he has broke into the local museum to get a look at a recently imported artifact. Even though his father works at the museum, he's broken in because a bad relationship with his father means he isn't actually allowed to come in to visit. Dan finds the artifact here and sees that it is the Pandora box, a device that promptly kills him once he opens it. Dan wakes up in a mysterious, larger copy of Earth and is greeted by the ruler of this dimension. He learns that his death has transported him to the spirit world, a plane of existence where people go when they die, but are still remembered by those still alive. By opening the Pandora box, Dan has also released the emptiness into the spirit world, creatures who have been forgotten by the real world and are attempting to combine the spirit world with it in order to come back to life. To make up for his mistake, Dan is given the powers of the warrior known as Ghost, which allows him to defeat emptiness monsters throughout the spirit world and gain more powers as he travels through it. Over time, he eventually meets Spectre, who was the original Ghost 1,000 years ago that was betrayed and left to fend for himself, revealing that the ruler of the spirit world has more to his plot than we think. Eventually, the two heroes chase the emptiness back to the real world, but when they end up there, they find that defenses have been built up against them in the form of the Ghostbuster Squad, led by Necrom. The tentative title for the season is Masks of Ghost. I think that this sounds like a fantastic adaptation idea. I love how it takes stuff from Kamen Rider Ghost, but it gives it its own spin, like the use of a team of Necrons as man-made riders instead of Ganma riders, and making our heroes have more of the supernatural aspect than in the show. It's basically flipping a lot of things from the original show, and as I said, I really like that, and it gives it this unique feel, but it still feels like Kamen Rider Ghost in a way. Here's another adaptation idea for Kamen Rider, this time from Nicholas Jennings. The idea is for a Kamen Rider Geo adaptation that crosses over with Hyuto Precure. The Geo series stays relatively the same here except for a few specific changes to fit the crossover. Instead of Sogo, George from Hyuto is Oma Geo, who has wiped Waz's memories in an attempt to erase him from the timeline. Waz, in the past, will work with Kiriel and Hugatan as well, and they will all share a time machine with Harry. Gates is changed to be from the past and now works alongside Sogo, both of which are neighbors to Kiriel as well. We will also still have the rider stuff going on. Another riders are made using the data of past riders, and some that wouldn't appear normally will return, such as Eternal, Saw Sword, and Chaser. But of course, we also have some other crossovers going on with Miraculous Ladybug, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012, Lupin the Third, and more. Now, I don't personally know anything about Precure, so I'm not getting as much out of this crossover idea with that as maybe others have, but I kind of like the crossovers with the other completely unrelated seasons as well, and I also feel that the changes are inspired and they do feel pretty unique and cool in my opinion, even though I don't really know much about how they would play into the actual story. FireStorm Dell's idea begins when an alien species known as the Nazro-Helmans arrive on Earth. Using their powers to control the elements, they begin to cause trouble and wreak havoc around the world, causing the world powers to pool their resources and create the Rider Global Rescue Force. Our main character, Zach Kelvin, is recruited to join the rescue force after risking his life over and over in different fire disasters to avenge his brother, Adam, who was killed in a fire created by a helmet known as Mbiro. Zach becomes the fire rescue Kamen Rider known as Kamen Rider Playz, and meets some of the other riders such as Violet Hills, Kamen Rider Sheriff, and Momoko Fujiwara, Kamen Rider Medic, and this is our main trio. However, as this big organization, there are of course more riders like Kamen Rider Arrow, Kamen Rider Hydro, and Kamen Rider Heavy. Together, Playz and the other rescue riders work together to fight back against the aliens and stop the world from falling into disaster. I really like this idea and would totally enjoy it as a show. My favorite part of it is the world basically falling apart because of the arrival in aliens, and now there's just massive organization attempting to deal with their massive power set. An organization which is backing the riders, which is also something we don't see too often and I'm a fan of. You could also do some things with this by having a military branch of riders, or of course just have more rescue riders from different branches. The base idea is really cool, and because of the motifs, there are a lot of places you can go from it. SA20 Cart R's Kamen Rider idea follows the man named Luke Harper. He's a criminal and has committed many crimes throughout his lifetime and believed he could live without it ever catching up to him. Eventually though, he can't escape the demons of his past anymore as he is finally arrested and detained by the police and is sent to jail. When he is released, he's realized his mistakes and wants to atone for his crimes, and as such he goes to his sister, Catherine Harper. He discovers that she's working on a groundbreaking new technology, one that will grant its user super strength, reflexes, and speed. When evil beings known as the Akuma begin to surface and attack, Luke uses the new technology to become Kamen Rider Ignition. I'd say that my favorite part of this is the main character. I like how he starts off as this terrible person and has to learn to be a better person throughout the season. It could also give his fighting style the sort of edge because he's kind of a person that doesn't care what happens to the people he's fighting. And as I said, it would make for a terrific character arc. It would also create some interesting interactions with the other characters, Kamen Rider Shifter, Daniel Flynn, and Kamen Rider Hyper, who we don't actually have a name yet. I also quite like the names here. Ignition is a very simple name and it's a very simple idea, but it actually creates a very badass rider name. J-Time has created a spin-off of Kamen Rider Decade where we get an alternate take on the exploration of the Heisei Rider AR worlds. The story begins when our main character, Jay Israel, is kidnapped by Shocker and sees his world destroyed by the past monsters of Kamen Rider and ends up being the only survivor. He is left with only the proto-Deca driver and the drive to make up for his past mistakes of letting his entire world become destroyed. Becoming Kamen Rider Legacy, he travels through the 10 Rider worlds not yet saved by Kamen Rider Decade, and gains all of their powers. However, throughout his journey, he will be followed by a skeletal rider calling himself 15. They must find a way to avoid this enemy, but still save the worlds of Kamen Rider. Once again, we have little quirks and differences in each world traveled to. In Double, we'll see Kamen Rider Eternal play a bigger part, while in O's, a Yummy becomes Kamen Rider Death. In the Forze AR world, we'll see the one-off rider named Kamen Rider Icarus, and in Wizard, we'll be in the world inside the Magic Stone with tons of mage troopers. Mai becomes Gaim instead of Kota in the world of Gaim, Chase becomes Drive in that world, Takuru's son is Kamen Rider Ghost instead of him, Katsuragi ends up becoming Build, and Sogo becomes Omagio instead of... The only season that doesn't have a changed roster here is X8, which is something I'm perfectly okay with. My favorite part of this is the use of Kamen Rider 15 as a villain, as he only had the one appearance in the Guy movie and he was basically an anniversary rider, so I really like bringing him back. I also like how Legacy seems to know about the Kamen Riders because they exist as a show in his world, because I don't think we've quite seen a rider who confidently knows how to use his predecessor's powers. I think it's safe to say that I certainly like the ideas in this Decade sequel. Next up is Kamen Rider Phobia, brought to you by King Crossbones. The main villain of this season is Pantophobia, which is the fear of everything. He's sending nightmares into our reality via the dreamscape, a plane of existence where the dream world and the real world are blurred together. Our heroes fight the villains with the use of the Phobius driver and cartridge gimmicks. These gimmicks are named after the different prefixes of different phobias. So for example, a spider-themed cartridge and form would make use of the term arachno, and later upgrade forms could make use of multiple cartridges at the same time. I think the idea of phobias creating forms could be really cool in the season. You could have some wildly different forms, just because there are so many strange phobias. You could have an Atello form, the fear of imperfection, which could be the only asymmetrical form of the season, while a Somni form could make Phobia super alert because he doesn't want to fall asleep. I also kind of like how the form names would be a reverse of what the actual phobia name would be, such as the Arachnophobia form being called Phobia Arachno. I really like these ideas just for how unique they are. Overdrive's idea is called Kamen Rider Outlast. Our main character is named Ryan, who is trying to stop the Bagra army from taking over the entire galaxy. On his journey to stop them, he is later joined by the robot known as Deca, who comes from a different dimension and also helps out in the fight. More riders join on later on, such as Kamen Rider Spector, Ryan's brother named Drew, and Zephyr, who comes from the same dimension as Deca. The main transformation device here is called the Star Reader, which makes use of stars inserted into it. However, Spector uses rider cards instead of stars, and Zephyr uses the gate opener, which uses the rider key to unlock the gate on the front of the driver. I like how these different ideas cover a lot of different aspects. We've got space, dimensions, robots, evil armies, and it's a lot of different stuff, and seems like it could create a very crazy season, which is something I'm a fan of. I also like the use of different drivers for our different riders. It can provide for different power usages and make for some interesting battles and fight scenes. Mythos Soldiers is the name of the original tokusatsu idea from cool-kid-mun. The story begins in the country of Lithuania, where Keith Sanders is enjoying his vacation until a metal wolf creature begins terrorizing the area where Keith is. He tries fighting it one day to stop its rampage, but before he can, he is given a strange-looking blade by a mysterious girl. The blade gives Keith fencing-like armor that allows him to defeat the beast and results in him being given a coin. Inserting this coin into the blade results in him acquiring a more powerful upgraded form similar to the wolf he just defeated. The girl who gave him the blade tells him he has just become a Mythos Soldier, warriors across the world whose purpose is to help cleanse the corruption from spirits who have been sent into the real world. The spirit just defeated was the Iron Wolf, and the coin he left behind is known as a signed proof that the warrior is worthy enough to use it. Signed proofs create proof gear when used in the Mythos Edge, and they grant different powers. Keith must use the powers he has just unlocked to work with the other Mythos soldiers around the world and unravel the mystery behind the corruption seeping into our world. I like how this idea mixes aspects of Garo and Kamen Rider so that it feels like something original. I like the proof thing going on as well, as it gives the soldiers this sense of worthiness to their cause beyond just having the gear, and it also gives a bit of a mystery to the evil Mythos soldiers that are said to appear and how they exist. Nikolaj Slente's idea is called Kamen Rider North and uses many ideas and motifs from Norse mythology. The main characters are named Ragnar and Lucas, who get pulled into the war for the Nine Realms when they go to Vanir Corp for what they believe is a simple tech demo. The gear they are given for the demo turns out to be a set of Nordic drivers and the Viking and Giga ass cards. Right after they are given the transformation gear, the city is attacked by the Ruined Draugr. The result is them transforming into Kamen Rider North and Kamen Rider Jotun for the first time to defend the city, but the Draugr disappears before they can defeat it. It turns out that this is a beast sent by the Realm Chasers, evil beings seeking to take over the Nine Realms by using rune cards to control mythical beasts. North and Jotun use their own aforementioned versions of these cards called as cards. Jotun tends to use cards based off Norse giants, while North uses cards based off of beasts. When he eventually collects the Fenrir, Dain, Hildisvini, and Fafnir cards, he unlocks his first god form, the upgrade forms of the seasons. I like how we go all out with the Norse aesthetic here. Nothing is really trying to lean itself in any other direction, and as such the season here feels very unified and straightforward. There's nothing too confusing going on here. I really like that Ragnar and Lucas are also both friends at the start, and they both become riders together. It creates this dynamic we don't usually see with the main two riders, especially in the beginning and in recent years. But really I'd say that my favorite part about this whole idea is the term Asgard. Asgard card. Asgard. That is quite honestly a top tier pun. The last idea we're taking a look at is Toku Master's Kamen Rider Element, a sort of meta joke on the whole entire superhero trope. This is because the aesthetics of this season are literally based around different kinds of superpowers, with a unique theme distributed to the different riders, creating the many forms of this season. As I said, the primary rider is Kamen Rider Element. Him and the other hero riders use power vials inside of the power driver to achieve their different forms known as powers. Element's base form is the earth powers, and his other base forms are the water, fire, and air powers. The use of the state unlock key with the original power vials upgrades the forms into their super forms, solid, liquid, gas, and plasma powers. The super form of this season is the Eclipse power vial, which unlocks the light powers and darkness powers. The final form of this season is the matter powers, which is probably a form that controls literally everything, all of matter. Of course, there's not just Element, we have Kamen Rider Menta. The base form has psionic powers, followed by the phantom powers. Her super form is gravity powers, and the magic powers is her final form. The other two hero riders are Physica with the strength, speed, and prime powers, and Morp with the shape-shifting powers. The villain riders use the Infinidriver in its own gimmicks known as Infinivials. The first one is Kamen Rider Beyond. His base form is temporal powers, and later he gains the spatial powers and the antimatter powers as his final form to mirror Element's final form. His older brother, Oblivio, would also appear in the movie at some point with the Void powers. I have to say, these ideas are awesome. I love the little meta humor of having a season of Kamen Rider use literal superpowers as its gimmick, but it's still thought out with each character having a running theme with each of their forms. Currently, there's no story for these, but I like the detailed analysis of the forms here, and I'm interested to know what story this season would follow. So that's the 3,000 subscribers special. I think that by the time this video will go up, we're well past 3,000 subscribers. So sorry this video is so late, but I really wanted to include everyone's idea in some fashion and give it some detail because you guys really had some amazing ideas and I really wanted to include them all. You guys really come up with some great stuff that I don't think I could have ever came up with. So I'm really glad I could share this with the rest of the subscribers, all 3,000 of you. Honestly, thank you guys so much. It's crazy how fast the channel is growing, and it's thanks to all the support from you guys on all of the different videos, which is why I wanted to make this special all about you guys. If anyone's idea here caught your attention, I have the script of this video linked in the description where you guys can check out everyone's ideas in more detail and how I ad-lib half of these videos. There are a lot of ideas that you guys had that I couldn't fit into this video because it's already gone on long enough. So I've linked all the images and Google Docs of your amazing ideas in case you want to learn more. Big thanks to everyone who submitted their ideas for the video, as I had a lot of fun reading them. If you're new here, please consider hitting the subscribe button for more Tokusatsu content, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.